He didn't say much, just a few and okay, I'll be there soon. Less than 5 minutes later, he grabbed his keys and told me he had to go out for a bit. I assumed he was going to his mother's place, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe she needed help with something, I thought. Hours passed and Jordan still wasn't back. I started to get worried and tried calling him, but he didn't pick up. I sent him a few texts asking where he was and if everything was okay. All he responded with was a short message saying he wouldn't be home that night and that he'd explain everything later. My heart sank. I couldn't understand why he wasn't coming home or what could be so important that he needed to stay out all night. The next day, I had an important prenatal appointment. Jordan was supposed to accompany me, but he didn't show up, so I went alone. Everything went fine at the appointment, and I was looking forward to sharing the updates with him. But when I got back home, I was greeted by a shocking sight. My stuff was on the porch, clothes, books, everything. There was a note taped to the door from Jordan. It said he knew I cheated and that he wasn't the father of the baby. My heart sank, and I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I tried to get inside, but the locks had been changed. How had he managed to do all this so quickly? It was like my world had turned upside down in an instant. I didn't know where to go, so I went to my friend Sarah's house. She lived right next to us, and I hoped she could help me figure out what to do. When I knocked on her door, she took one look at me and knew something was terribly wrong. She let me in, and as soon as I started telling her what had happened, she was just as shocked as I was. Sarah said she had heard some commotion earlier but hadn't paid much attention to it. She had no idea what was going on either. I tried calling Jordan, but he didn't pick up. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. Then, out of nowhere, I received a text message from Jordan. It was a picture of me standing at our front door with a man. I was smiling, and the guy was handing me something. I remember this guy. He was a colleague who had come over a few times to get my signature on some work documents. Nothing inappropriate had happened. He was just a coworker. Who could have taken this photo? I was so confused and hurt. I texted Jordan, trying to explain that the man in the picture was just a colleague from the office and that nothing had happened between us. But Jordan didn't believe me. He just replied, saying he wanted a divorce and that he couldn't trust me anymore. It felt like a dagger to the heart. I couldn't believe it took so little to destroy our relationship. Trust me, I tried my best to explain everything and reassure him, but it was like he had already made up his mind. Something had changed in him, and he wasn't ready to listen to me at all. A few weeks later, I was still living at Sarah's house. I was trying to keep myself together, but it was hard with all the stress and uncertainty hanging over me. I did make plans to move back to my parents' place for a while to get some stability, but I couldn't travel right now because of how far along I was in my pregnancy. It just wasn't safe for me with a baby. I needed help, so I asked my mom to come and stay with me. She flew in the next day, and it was such a relief to have her by my side during this difficult time. My mom helped me find a small apartment nearby. It wasn't much, but it was a place where I could start over. I used what little money I had saved to sign the lease, and my parents generously loaned me some money to help with the baby's expenses. They have been my rock through all of this, and I couldn't have made it without them. It was a humbling experience relying on my parents like this, but I was grateful for their support. I had to deliver my baby without my husband. My mom was there, but I still felt so alone. After a month later, I was still trying to reach out to Jordan, texting him, sending him photos of our baby boy, and doing everything I could to make him believe that he was the father. I kept telling him that we could get a paternity test, and that all I needed was a sample of his hair, but he wasn't even willing to try that. It was like he had completely shut me out. Then one day, out of the blue, he sent me divorce papers. I was furious and heartbroken at the same time. I didn't know what to do. I felt so helpless and abandoned. I didn't have any other option but to hire a lawyer. I thought, if Jordan doesn't want to accept his son, then fine, we don't need him. I was determined to move forward for the sake of my son. The lawyer was very supportive and helped me navigate the whole process. I decided to include a clause in the divorce papers stating that Jordan was relinquishing his rights as a father. I was shocked when he happily signed the papers without any objections. It was like he didn't even care. Within a few months, we were divorced. Raising my son alone was really tough. There were sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and moments when I just felt completely overwhelmed. If it wasn't for my mom, who actually came to help out with the baby, my dad, who helped financially, and my friends, who helped me stay sane through it all, I would have lost my mind. My mom stayed with me for several months, helping with everything from feeding to midnight cuddles. She was my rock, always there to pick me up when I was feeling down and to remind me that I wasn't alone in this journey. My dad was amazing too. He provided financial support, which was a huge relief. Being a single parent with a newborn and trying to make ends meet was incredibly stressful, but knowing that my dad had my back made it a bit easier to breathe. My friends, especially Sarah, were my lifeline. They checked in on me, brought meals, and took me out for coffee just to get me out of the house. They kept me grounded and gave me the strength to keep going, even though things got really tough.